Hello, Future Prophets volunteers, and welcome back after the break. I know it was a pretty long 2-week break, but we're back, and this is Unit 2, Lesson 5, which is emergencies. So we'll be giving the students emergencies for their budget simulation. Now, for this lesson, we want to start off with a review, and this review will be about delayed and instant gratification. So, first, we want to remind them about the game we played in an instant or not. We'll talk a little bit about that. Then we want to ask them a question. That is, has anyone seen an example over the last week of delayed gratification where the reward after waiting was better than the reward that was offered at the beginning? So we just want to see if they kind of grasp the concept of delayed gratification that, we just wanted them to attain that information. Now, next we'll go into basically introducing the emergencies. So we want to tell the students that they're going to be learning what it's like for adults to handle situations that are outside of their control, basically. So this is a kind of a quote that you can use. Today, in our simulation, everyone's life will change dramatically. Unfortunately, some emergencies will happen in your lives. After you receive your emergency, you will have to make a new and revised budget based on the specific emergency that happened in your life. Now, with some of these emergencies, there may be a small emotional reaction. Some kids may feel that their budget was already hard to deal with because they're not making that much money, and now they have an emergency to deal with also. So that may be stressful or something like that. And there also may be some emergencies that hit home to some of the students. So we want to keep the whole simulation lighthearted for them. So we want to remind them that the simulation is just for pretend, and this is just a simulated 25-year-old life. And everybody is dealing with emergencies in the class and not just them.
Okay, so then we're going to actually pass out all of the papers that they need for that day. In brief, you're going to pass out the old worksheets, the new worksheets, and the emergencies. So first, the old worksheets are the ones that they've been working on, the budget simulation. Then we're going to pass out the new worksheets where they can actually put their name and their job before the emergency. That means if they were an electrician before they've had this emergency throughout the whole simulation, they'll write electrician there. Then when we pass out the emergencies, we'll pass them out on little cards. They'll each get a card, and then as soon as they get their card, they can write down what their actual emergency was. We're having them do a new budget simulation because the old one has been written on, and because we want to keep track of what their emergency actually was, because each of them will get a different emergency. So after you pass that out, they should have 3 things in front of them: their old worksheet, their new worksheet, and their emergency card. And then we're going to move into a discussion, which Darrell will explain.
All right, so with the purpose of this discussion is to assist the students in readjusting their budget. So we just want to help them know how to adjust their budgets through these 3 questions. The first question is, does anyone think that they've received the worst emergency in the class, and why? Now, I'm sure there will be some students in your class that feel like they have the worst emergency in class. So they'll have a lot to tell you about that emergency. The second question is for them to raise their hand if they think their emergency will not significantly affect their budget. After certain students raise their hands, you ask those students why. I'm sure that some students may feel that they either saved enough or have a significant amount of income in their monthly budget in order to succeed past that emergency. So we want to hear from them also. We want to know why. We want to know why they feel like they can succeed over that emergency. Now, the third question is, where do they feel they need to cut back on their expenses? whether it be clothing, whether it be entertainment, whether it be any type of subject in their budget. We want to know where would they have to cut back. So once we ask them this question, some of them may not understand the question of where do you need to cut back in your budget. So you want to aid them with some specific subjects, like I said, whether it be entertainment or clothing or food. They may need to cut back on eating out or groceries or things like that. So we want to aid them during that question so the discussion can flow and so they'll know how to readjust their budgets.
That'll basically be like a short discussion, just kind of asking students like what they think, and then saying, okay, now we're going to spend some time redoing your budgets. So that's the next thing we're going to move into. And before they actually have free time to redo their budgets, you're going to lead them through specific parts of the new worksheet, which you'll see in the email that I send you. You'll have this attachment. The first line is their monthly job income after the emergency. The second line is subtracting their monthly taxes again. And then the third line is adding any savings if their emergency card says that they can use savings. Now, all three of these lines are on their emergency card. It will tell them how much they can put for their monthly income. It will tell them what they should do for their taxes, whether it's the same as before or they'll have to refigure their taxes. And it will tell them if they're able to use savings or not. Some of the students will actually say they're not allowed to use savings because they haven't been following their savings plan. And others have been saving for 6 months, and so they can use 6 months of savings for that next month. So they're going to redo their budgets for whatever emergency happened in their life, and then we'll give them time to go through each of these categories and redo it. They can refer to their old ones so that it goes quicker. The last line you want to explain to them before they actually redo their budgets is the debt payments line. It's bolded and it's at the bottom. The reason why we included this is because some of the students may not be able to pay for their emergency, so they'll have to add a debt payments line. Now this can be kind of confusing or complicated, and so we want to keep it as simple as possible. Across the board, if they want to borrow money, it's going to be at 15%, so you can explain it like for every $100 you borrow, you have to add another 15 to that as part of your payments because you're going to be paying more than just the money that you borrow. And basically you don't want a lot of students to be borrowing money, so you'll be working one-on-one with the students that need to borrow money, such as like the minimum wage worker, if they got an emergency where they can't pay it, or something like that. Then you'll ask the students if they have any questions, any general questions. If students start to ask specific questions, tell them, save that question for later. If I was teaching with Darrell, I would say, Darrell and I are going to come around and talk with you and help you out with your budgets. So go ahead and start working on your budgets now, and then if you have specific questions about your budgets, we'll come around and help you. So then you'll give them about 15 minutes to work on their budgets, and they'll just be writing how much they think they'll spend in each category after the emergency has happened, because they'll most likely have a much lower monthly take-home income than before.
Now we'll go into a lecture to tie everything into real life. We just want to show them in this lecture how to prepare for an emergency and how to deal with the emergency when you're within that emergency. So we have tailored a lecture discussion for you, but you can also make a lecture of your own. So this is the lecture that we wrote down for you. It goes, one of the most important items in a budget is how much you put into savings. This amount should be like a bill you pay instead of just putting your leftover money in savings. Many people put a specific percentage of their money into savings in order to save up for either emergencies or for things for things you want to buy that are more expensive items. Even if you save, you may go through a certain emergency where you have to adjust your budget. This may require some creativity in spending your money so that you do not go in debt or so that you can afford to pay for your basic needs. Often, the areas that you have to spend less in are wants instead of needs. You can cut down on your spending in the need categories